if you think about the word comfort zone, it's actually not something that I've really given that much thought to until this very podcast right now. It's not a very idealistic viewpoint. It's not maybe something we should thrive for. Comfort zone basically means that you've reached a point in life at probably too early a point, and way too early, where you haven't reached your potential, but you've reached a point where you are okay with the status quo and everything as it is, and you don't want change. So you're gonna go week after week, and you're probably like me. I've been there. I've been there, where you'll go week after week. You live for the evenings, you live for the weekends, seeing your mates, having a couple drinks, chatting, laughing, going back to work, and it's just a comfort thing. Like you just want to do that. The problem is that, as you mentioned right at the beginning, is that change is inevitable.
Welcome back to the RLT podcast.
Sweet Dust. Episode 10.
Hey everyone, welcome to the RLT podcast, where we share some real life tools, tips, and tricks to help you not only discover, but also reach your ultimate goals. What's up everyone? Welcome back to the RLT podcast. My name is Mono.
Mono, you are joined by Leon.
And this is the 10th episode. So we're very, very excited to share some awesome topic with you guys today. And it's all about change and embracing change. Now, changes never come naturally to us, right? Change is something that goes completely against the way that we've been wired as human beings. But it's also something that is entirely inevitable. It's something that we cannot fight. It's something that we cannot resist. It's just a way of life. And I thought it best for us, Leon, to discuss this topic today and to share some insight as to how can one go about embracing change as opposed to fighting change all the time and fighting our natural instincts to withdraw and draw back into our comfort zones. So I think this is going to be a really, really cool episode, Leon. I don't know, how excited are you about this?
Oh wow, I'm so excited. I mean, I was cut short in the intro, so I still feel like I need to make an intro here. It's double digits, my man. It's episode 10.
Yeah.
Really, really, really excited, man. So happy for the ones that are listening and that are tuning in. I'm really, really grateful for every single listen and follow and like and click and download of the episode links and so on that we've had so far. Absolutely stoked. And yeah, absolutely. Embracing change, my man. Geez, that is something that we all are dealt with so often in our lives. And I'm a little bit of a neither here nor there type of guy when it comes to change. Sometimes I really do enjoy change, and sometimes I absolutely get petrified of change. It probably depends on the setting and the reason for the change. You know, when it's something professional, yes, you're going to get very, very nervous, and it's going to ensue with some doubt and what's going to happen, and you're not certain about the future. And yeah, that might not be such a positive feeling towards change. But then there's some other things that might change in your life, like maybe a new career endeavor, or maybe a new opportunity in life that unfolded and that opened up, that's still going to have the same kind of emotions but in a more positive light. So yeah, we're gonna dive into change and accepting change, and we're not really subject matter experts when it comes to change, but at least today we're gonna share some insights into what we've experienced ourselves when it comes to really diverse kind of change in life, and also some of the research and what the facts are telling us about change.
I think with having this chat with my girlfriend the one day, I think it was a couple of months ago, we usually after a very, very long week, we sit down, we have a couple of drinks, we catch up, we literally just chat about life, about the week, about things that are going on at the moment, and sort of just help each other through these difficult times that we keep going through, in our day jobs or in life in general, with the stress that we encounter and all that. And one of the topics that came up was change, and how change is just a part of life. And I think to a very large extent that inspired the episode today, Leon. And I thought we definitely have to do a full episode on it, because it's something that a lot of people struggle to wrap their heads around. And for me, it was personally such a big struggle in my life as well, because I think it's something that it's very simple for us to retreat into our own comfort zones and to say, but everything's okay if I stay here and if I just try and avoid change entirely. So with having that discussion, we also did touch on the topic that it goes against the way that the universe has been put together, right? If you take, for instance, a plant, you can't not expect a plant to grow. Either way, the plant will grow or it will die. You can't expect it not to change, right? So a plant will change in itself, and that's just nature. So nature in itself, if you have a very close look at nature and how nature has been put together, nature constantly changes, right? It's the way that the universe has been programmed, and we are in ourselves. Yeah, sure, we're living organisms, we're human beings, we're not plants, but still, it's a very, very big part of nature. Nature will force change. So it's something that the sooner you accept it, the sooner you realize that change is an inevitable part of life, the sooner you can start embracing it and embracing the opportunities that come with it as well. And I think that is what we want to focus on today, because with all living organisms comes either growth or death. And we will face our eternal demise at some point in our lives as well, where we will pass away, we will leave this world behind and all that. And until we get there, we're going to go through constant change. And we need to learn how to accept it and how to use that to our advantage and how to be excited about that. Because change is a very, very exciting thing. Now, Leon, I know you or someone that you struggle a little bit with change in certain aspects of your life. You're someone that, in the small amount of time that I've come to know you, I've seen that change doesn't come easily to you. You find your way, you settle in, and that's where you want to live. To a certain aspect, I'm not saying all aspects of your life, but tell me a little bit more about that.
No. You're very, very right. I'm a bit of a hibernator. I don't like change. I'm one of those people. I try and put walls and securities and obviously, proverbially speaking now, things around me that allows me to always feel like I'm in some sort of a comfort zone. So, I don't think I really enjoy change. I don't really embrace change. I don't really like to foresee change. It makes me nervous. It makes me feel like whatever I have now, which is warm and fuzzy, is going to change. And I'm going to have to educate myself around the new changes. I'm going to have to adapt. I'm going to have to look at the opportunities that it presents. And then I'm going to have to reassess and realign. And so, I'm not really one for change. It's one of those things, as much as I know what the right answer is, when it comes to change and that you should embrace change, I just want to throw those people with a piece of pie in the face when they say you should embrace change. I wish it could just all stay the same forever. And, it's my warm and happy place. So I completely empathize and I sympathize with probably half of our listeners today that do not enjoy change. I'm one of those. And what I've come to know, especially in the let's call it grown-up world and professional world, is that at some point in time, like Mani just explained in such a morbid way of life and death, and in between these changes, that you're going to face these things. You're going to face change constantly, and everything's going to course correct and change and course correct and change all over again. It's just like this endless loop of change and course correction and adaptation. So at the end of the day, I've had to retrain my most core instincts, almost like animal instincts, like smelling prey is for a predator. I've had to like retrain my brain into seeing change as opportunity, or some sort of opportunity, bad or good. And yeah, it's really come difficult. I've really struggled with this one. This is one of those episodes that I looked forward to, because I can learn from someone like you that's really, really good at adapting and molding into change. And you're like a chameleon. You can really fit into change really, really well. And I'm not. I'm that guy that sticks out like a pimple at the end of the change, and I'm still not used to how the things were and how they are now, and how I miss the way that they were. And so absolutely, I think there's going to be two different mindsets today on this talk. I think there's going to be people that hopefully resonates with me, and I believe there's many of you, and there's hopefully a lot of insight and a wealth of wisdom that will come from the likes of Manu, that's more on the like of thinking about changing more of a positive light, and seeing the opportunity and the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to change, and how that could serve as a position of growth, a position of opportunity and growth. Manu, I mean, let's take you as the protagonist in this episode, as leading us all towards the wisdom of change.
Yeah, I think for me, the way that I grew up, we used to move around a lot and everything, and I always used to see that as a really bad thing. But then I realized that once we've moved, once I start making new friends, the opportunities that just come with that is amazing. And I learned how to adapt to new situations at a very, very young age. I take, for instance, when I left high school. For me, the very first thing I did when I left high school is I moved into my first place. 18 years old, moved into my very first place. Just because I wanted change. I was done with high school. I was done with living with my parents, and I wanted change in my life. I wanted to see what the world has to offer. And that is something I jumped into, not really preparing too much in that light, but rather just jumping into it and saying, well, yes, it's going to be change. Yes, it's going to be difficult. There's going to be some challenges that I'm going to have to face, but I'm really, really amped on seeing what the end result is. I'm really amped on seeing, what's down the line for me. And that was something that came from at a very, very young age. So fast forward a couple of years, I've actually learned to embrace change to a very good extent, of saying that if there's a new opportunity out there and I'm extremely scared to take it, in most cases I sit back and I'm fearful of taking that change or adapting to that change. But in some cases I actually did take a leap of faith, and I did play into this change to some extent, and just the results that I achieved at the end of the day was amazing. So it's something that's very, very close to me. It's something that really has changed the way that I approach life. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I mean, Leon, yes, I can give you some tips. From my point of view, it's just I think we had this discussion when you went through some very, very big changes in your career path or career life as well. And the first thing I came and I said to you was, Leon, you got to embrace change. Change means growth. And the first thing you said was like, what, dude? No, I mean, this is not a good change. We can't say those
things on the show. Yeah,
I know.
This is daytime television. I didn't respond. I didn't respond lightly.
But I know, especially when it comes to tough changes, when it comes to negative changes or things that appear to be negative changes within your life, right? The first thing that you keep thinking to yourself is, but Mono, what do you mean this means growth? I mean, it's all in all, if I had to go and summarize what just happened to my life, it's not a good thing. None of it is good. This is going to be bad all the way down. And I think I've gone through some pretty similar changes in my life as well. And to some extent, I had to push through them myself. And I got out on the other end, and I got out stronger. And I know it sounds so stupid and philosophical. You'll just push through it. You'll come through on the other side a lot stronger. You'll be a better person. It'll make you a better person in general. But for me, it was more along the lines of the self-discovery, the discovering of your strengths, discovering of your weaknesses, and discovering of what you want in life in general and what you thought you had planned in life. the universe just threw you a curveball and you just learned how to roll with it, as opposed to try and fight it the whole time. You learn how to roll with the punches. And that at the end of the day has a massive, massive impact on how you push through that change and what you start accomplishing at the end of the line.
Look, it's a very idealistic view, and I completely understand what you're saying, but I still believe that there's many people on my side of the show that's going to not disagree, but politely have a different mindset, where, I'm at that ripe old age of mid-30s. I've got 2 kids, I've got a wife, I've got a house, I've got the dogs, I've got the cars, and, I don't really want change right now. I just want stability. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm seeking, is stability and predictability. And geez, like, if something comes and throws a spanner in that works, wow, am I course corrected, and wow, am I just completely out of my comfort zone. So I can completely see how it forces you in a position of self-discovery and finding new strengths and new areas of strength and so on. And I just want to see if there's a way. Maybe we won't find it in this discussion, but maybe there's a way that we can find change as being positive no matter the circumstance. So whether you are in my position as like in a comfort zone and you've got your kids and your family and everything, and you just kind of want to have predictability, and you want to know that what I have from like right now is going to be the same in 12 months, it's going to be the same in 24 months, or whether a spanner in the work comes and you have the agility and, let's call it maybe maturity, to see that as an opportunity and actually rework that into something that can even become maybe better and serve you even better in the long run. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, tips? Money?
Yeah,
How do we do that?
Sure. So, I mean, I fully agree with you, Leon, because I think to such a large extent, I understand where you're coming from. Take, for instance, and this is going to sound strange, but take, for instance, weather, right? And seasons changing all the time. We go through summer, we go through winter, we go through autumn, we go through spring. And those seasonal changes, and we're talking about the weather here, but and I'll tell you exactly why I'm referring to the weather, is because I'm a summer baby. I love summertime. I'd rather sit here and sweat in my little home office while recording this episode than sit here in the winter and I'm freezing and I've got like 7 blankets around me. If I hit winter time, I come home from work and I wrap myself in 7 blankets and I would just lay there until it's time for me to take a shower and then get into bed. I mean, that's the type of person I am. My emotions and my mental well-being is very, very closely tied to the weather around us. Okay, so why am I referring to the weather, Leon? Is because I know that change doesn't always make sense. So for me, I'm like, what is the point of having different seasons? What's the point of having your rainy days and you're pouring down? And I know, like, obviously I believe in like the whole ecosystem of how weather works and stuff, and I understand it. But the point is that, like, in life in general, right? Why do we have these changing seasons, and what sort of impact does that, and why does it affect my mood? And why can't I just pick myself up and say, you know what? Yes, it's a rainy day today. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it's winter time. Why can't I just pick myself up and just adapt to that change of weather and still be the person that I am throughout the rest of the year? And it's absolutely, I understand that the change doesn't come easy and it doesn't always make sense. But I see it from a perspective of, if we had sunny days every single day of our lives for the rest of our lives, how boring would life be? I feel that every single day you would be able to go out and go fishing, but you won't ever have a lazy day in your home, laying down, watching TV, eating pancakes or ordering in pizza and just having a chilled night in, right? You'd always want to go out, or you'll always be hot and sweaty and stuff, right? So yes, I fully understand that change is not always easy. It's not always easy to accept. But I mean, I'm not a stagnant person. One of the things that really, really drive me towards change and embracing change is the fact that I hate stagnation more than anything in this world. And that's something that I discovered for myself, is that when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling like I'm not accomplishing things, and we've scraped the surface on this in a couple of our previous episodes as well. I sit down and I analyze my life, and I realize that it's because I don't have growth, because I don't have change, because I'm doing the same thing day in, day out. So Albert Einstein even said this, Leon, and I know that you've got your own opinion, but he said madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So can you argue with that statement and tell me that the change is not good? So if you do want different results in your life, you're going to have to change. You're going to have to adapt. And I feel that's sort of the point that I want to discuss to some extent, not the entire point. But do you understand where I'm headed with this?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. So to flip the script from my side, I've been presented with a ton of change this specific year in my life, and a lot of it is quite personal. A lot of it is something that I don't feel comfortable sharing on the show just yet. But I've been forced into change, and very uncomfortable change. I was quite warm and fuzzy and cozy where I was, and that was completely uprooted, and very suddenly so. And I think for the listeners out there that can identify with my experience, let's call it maybe loss of life in the family, or a career path change or retrenchment. I mean, we're going through this COVID period where I cannot imagine that there's no listeners on this podcast that hasn't gone through the effects of COVID. And it's forced us to embracing change, so it was change that wasn't really optional. We weren't given the choice, okay, this is option A or B, and you decide whether to undertake the change or not. So what I did is it took me a while, honestly, man, to be honest with you, it took me a while. And I mean, we've spoken about this off record for quite a couple of months, but it took me a while to completely understand what has happened and to reassess and completely realign with what is going on. So I was quite disoriented. So change is something, coming from my side of the coin, so to speak. Change is something that can completely disorient you. So it's something that might come upon your life at a very unpredictable and maybe even an inopportune time, which was my case, and then present you with a completely different outcome from what you've believed was always going to be the case. So I took that. I didn't embrace it at first. I completely rejected the change. I went through my own stumbling blocks of trying to deal with it, trying to understand it, trying to see where it was coming from, and then just resentment, So I'm obviously talking about deep changes. So either, really, really big changes in life. So I went through the resentment period, and, I've done enough self-discovery and reading up and understanding, and hopefully the people that we have on our podcast has done the same. But I came to a point where I understood that resentment and all these negative things don't really serve me. They don't make me a better person. They don't realign me. They don't put me in a position of power. They don't give me the tools and the fuel that I need to carry on and to find what I want to do and so on in life. So I started reaching out to many different people, and I started seeing that change presents you with two different things, or maybe three. The one thing is education, so change usually comes upon your life, and the reason why you identify it as change because it's something that you are not educated on. So it's a movement in life, or a push or a pull in a certain direction in which you feel uneducated. Hence the reason you see it as change. So, for example, you might be in a specific position at work. Let's call it a technical position, and suddenly you are pushed or pulled into a head of department position. Okay, that sounds quite positive, but that still presents its own stresses and reasons for either rejecting or embracing change. And that just presents an opportunity to educate yourself upon something completely new in your life, something that is foreign, something that you have no choice to accept. Maybe if it's a professional change, you might feel that you have to embrace this change. And if not doing so, it means that you might be jobless. So, and that's something that obviously as many of us, we fear the most, is just not being able to provide an income. So education is absolutely one of the things that you see, that you have to try and see as one beacon of light at the end of the tunnel. The second thing is, once you've noticed that this is a point of education in your life, and this is where I really enjoy, the forward thinkers and the thought leaders in the world. There's so many of them. We've obviously recited a few of them in the past episodes. And yes, it's really easy to come from those positions when you've already achieved a lot. So I do completely empathize and I completely understand that. But it's very important to understand that from change, you've got the education point. And then obviously behind education sits, what is the opportunity or the possibility that comes from this change? So you might look at the change and say, listen, this is completely not what I wanted. And that's just going to put you in clam mode. You're completely going to clam up. You're not going to see positive, negative. You're not going to really entertain any feedback from your peers, colleagues, families, loved ones, etc. But as soon as you start seeing it as a point in life that was always inevitable, because nothing ever just stays forever the same, and this is now that point of education and course redirect. It's probably something I say a little bit too much, but it's really true. And you should try and go and see the opportunity in this. Go and look at the possibility. What can come from this? Where's this going to steer you towards? Obviously, there's the finite possibility that this could be a negative change. But in most circumstances, I've noticed that this is usually some sort of positive change. Just as soon as you start embracing it, and as soon as you start seeing why it's happening and how it's going to form you as a person after that, and what you can learn from it, and how you're going to expand as a human being, you start seeing it as an opportunity. And that can then be either a personal opportunity, it can be an emotional opportunity, it can be a spiritual opportunity, it can be a professional opportunity. It's completely what you make it out to be. But at the end of the day, as soon as I started, when I've gone through massive change, I've gone through changes, but this year was like massive change. And as soon as I just decided that, thriving or trying to live on this negativity around this change is not serving me, it's not enhancing me, it's not making me any better person. My kids don't understand what it's about. My family and friends and wife doesn't understand what it's about. I need to embrace it. And I noticed that there's some point of education, opportunity, and possibility within this change. That's when I actually started speaking, understanding, and leaning in to the change.
So I think to a very large extent, you can interpret change as in two different ways, right? Change number one, you in some cases you can be prepared for change in your life. Those are intentional changes that you actually apply to your life based on negative past experiences. So if you have a negative experience based on maybe, let's say, the habits that you have, or some experience that you experienced within your own life, then yes, you can go out and make that change yourself. But in the second regard there, what you're referring to, Leon, is changes that happen in your life without you being prepared for those type of changes, right? And I think William Bridges actually had this transition model, which actually summarizes it in such a very great way. Well, first and foremost, it's ending what currently is, and then going into this transition zone, moving into the new beginning, right? And he summarizes it perfectly in the sense that the first thing that you're going to experience is uncertainty, right? That's when a change happens, and that's the sort of change that you're talking about, right? Where something gets forced into your life, you're not sure whether it's good or bad yet. On the surface, it feels really bad. So you hit that uncertainty level, and that's where the excitement starts to die down. You start, you're hitting a little bit of anxiety, frustration, confusion, resistance against this change in itself. And it's when you hit that resistance against the change that you enter this transition zone. Because now life used to be one way and life is changing without you applying any changes to it. So it makes you extremely uncomfortable. And then that's when confusion settles in once again and you start moving into the new beginning, just to find that once you're settling into this new beginning, into this transition, into this change, that you actually start getting your giving better commitment to that situation, feeling a lot of relief. And a lot of that unsurety or anxiety starts going away or fading away to some extent. And that's how you go through this transition wave that William Bridges refers to as well. And this is something that I've personally experienced so many times in my life that I cannot even think of like the perfect example in it. But it's just saying that we will go through changes, right? Whether we like it or not, whether you're planning on those changes happening in your life or whether you're not, it's just going to happen to your life whether you like it or not. That's the way that life is put together, right? So you did scrape the surface on something that I want to touch on as well, Leon, is the fact that you can prepare yourself for change to some extent as well, right? By saying that if you embrace change to some extent, just change your mindset around change, right? Because and it sounds strange, change your mindset about change. It's the main fact that once you accept that life is a living organism, things will change whether you like it or not. Sometimes it's going to feel good, sometimes it's going to feel bad. You have to be open to change because it is going to happen. Once you've accepted that in your life, you can start preparing for change. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that when I left high school and I got my first job, I had to prepare myself for change. And it sounds like a really silly example because that was more than 10 years ago. Not to give away my age, Leon. I know that you're so sensitive about your age, but I'm still much younger than you. Point is that I had to prepare myself for change because I felt that I want to have a different life. I want to experience different things. So for me, I had to start planning that to some extent. Well, not even planning it, really. Back then it wasn't really planning it. It's really just preparing my mindset for it and being open to that change. And the amount of stuff that I accomplished because I moved out the house when I was 18, the life experiences that I got, I'm still reaping the benefits. I'm still reaping the rewards of it. So it's something that you have to accept and embrace. Now, one interesting thing that I did hear, Leon, some time ago was, and I think this is going to explain your situation 100%. So they say you use 20% of your mental capacity or mental strength on autopilot. Those are the things that you're used to doing. Those are the things that you're doing right now. That's sitting, talking, thinking, speaking. Yeah. It's something that just comes natural to you. Taking a sip of water, those type of things. That takes about 20% of your mental energy, right? Now, any change that happens in your routine or disruption in your routine, in your daily routine or in your life, right, will require you putting in more than 20% of energy into that specific process or into that specific change, right? And literally, we are not wired to take that as a comfort because we built this baseline of comfort zone throughout our lives of just using that 20% of energy. And that's the autopilot that you find yourself in when you're driving to work and you're zoning out completely, or you're listening to someone giving a talk and you have to go back to the beginning because you just zoned out entirely, right? It's that 20%, but putting in more than that 20% is uncomfortable. It goes against everything in our beings. So yes, absolutely, it's going to be uncomfortable to go through it, but it's the only way that you can redirect your life. It's the only way that you can make intentional change and put intentional more effort into it to get a better outcome at the end of the day. So those are the two changes that you can experience in life, right? Intentional changes or just life changes in general.
Yeah, that what you just said there actually gives me goosebumps, because as you was talking there, and this is completely, I mean, we don't work according to a script, but that's kind of off of what I thought of talking about tonight, but one of the things that you mentioned there that is very, very profound, and geez, I'm guilty. I'm first to admit that I'm so guilty, is that, if you think about the word comfort zone, it's actually not something that I've really given that much thought to until this very podcast right now. It's not a very idealistic viewpoint. It's not maybe something we should thrive for. Comfort zone basically means that you've reached a point in life at probably too early a point, and way too early, where you haven't reached your potential, but you've reached a point where you are okay with the status quo and everything as it is, and you don't want change. So you're gonna go week after week, and you're probably like me. I've been there. I've been there, where you'll go week after week. You live for the evenings, you live for the weekends, seeing your mates, having a couple drinks, chatting, laughing, going back to work, and it's just a comfort thing. Like you just want to do that. The problem is that, as you mentioned right at the beginning, is that change is inevitable. Now, the problem is that I grew up in a household where, for example, my father has been working for the very same company for the past 38 years. He's never really experienced a real kind of threat to his job. When he started working, work wasn't that scarce. So, he just started working, and he grew himself up, and he climbed the ladder slowly but surely. We lived really well. There wasn't ever really any kind of financial problems. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor, and everything was fine, And you grow up, I at least grew up, and I think a lot of our listeners would identify that you grow up in this just sense of normality, and stuff should quiet down, and things should just progress, and life should just kind of go past you with no challenges, with no excitement, with no change, with no instability or curveballs and so on. And I think life has changed. It's something that I've noticed. It's just life has changed. If you look at the professional work life nowadays, it's just so volatile. The world economics is volatile. The world is volatile. Politics is volatile. Everything is unpredictable. So the chances of you finding a job right now and just hanging in there until retirement age is obscene. And I promise you, I was that guy. I was that guy that said, at the ripe old age, when I started at the business that I'm at now, I said, this is the company I'm going to retire at. And now I look back at it and I think, geez, you're such a fool. It's never ever going to be that. And I think that is where my adaptability to change is actually nestled in. So it's from a professional point of view, I saw the capability to find a job, nestle in, and then just stick it out would be my definition of life. And in between that, yes, there could be changes unforeseen, like health changes and small little minute things that you can control, but the baseline that provides for everything, which is obviously monetary and which is your livelihood or your job, that would probably stay constant. And I think that is probably where I'm missing the mark, and maybe a lot of our listeners that are maybe identifying with my side of the coin. It's just something that I completely, even for myself, realized tonight, is that you shouldn't just see change as this moment in life of situation in your life changing from one to the other, but you should see it as part of life. You should proactively think about it. You should try and foresee it, and you should absolutely expect it. No matter where you are in life, no matter whether you've got children like I do, no matter whether you are a young professional that just started out, no matter whether you are a 45 or 50-year-old guy that's been doing the same kind of professional job. And I've got an uncle that can relate to that, that's been doing the same thing, and he's close to retirement, but now suddenly there's change as far as professional is concerned. And again, apologies, but a lot of what I'm talking about is professionally inclined. But it's something that we should all start seeing as an inevitability, And we need to start preparing ourselves to how we're going to react to that. So we've got a couple of minutes left on the podcast today, Manu, but how do you think, for someone like myself that's still battling with change, even though I've gone through change this year, I think I came out okay. I mean, this podcast is testament to some of the change. But what kind of tips or tricks or advice can you give to start? Again, like I said, it's an inevitability. So let's all agree upon that. That's fact. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
You can't foresee change. And with the life today, it's completely different from the life from 1 or 2 generations back. So it's going to happen.
Yeah.
What do we do in order to prepare ourselves for change? And how do we strengthen our response to said changes?
Sure. So I think the first thing, the fact that we've settled that life will change, and the career example that you gave as well, Leon, it's like saying that I can find the perfect position for me inside a company where I'm completely content with, I'm extremely happy with my job and all those, and happy with the circumstances that I work in. And I can stay stuck in that job for the next 20 to 30 to 40 years thinking that nothing will change. But to a certain extent, things will change. The company's vision might change, or the circumstances might change, or the people around you might change, or their attitudes towards you, or your attitude towards them. So either way, there are so many contributing factors that will force change eventually, because it goes against the very nature of the universe to stay stagnant. Nothing can stay stagnant. I mean, take a McDonald's burger, for instance. There's been studies that it can stay stagnant on one place for a very long time and not change at all. But I'm not talking about that.
That is either the best or the worst analogy that I've ever heard.
I know, okay, but overall, anything natural, okay, us human beings, we will change. So, real tip of today, from my side, I would say, if we can embrace that change, if we accept that change is going to happen, why don't we take risks? Why don't we go after what it is that we want? If change is going to happen to you sooner or later, then it's best for me to be in control of that change. So I try and prepare for that change. I try and take risks where possible. It's not always easy. I know it's easier said than done as well. But I think the real tip for today is simply don't go and write anything down, because I feel like we always give you stuff to write down, okay? But this week, take a chill pill. Don't write anything down. Just apply this to your mindset and be open to change. Think about this, ponder on this, take risks. If you have, I mentioned earlier on that you've got, there are 2 types of risks according to me. I mean, not according to research, I don't know, maybe there are more type of risks that you can take. But to me, there's risks that I can control, or not risks, changes that I can control. And on the other end of the spectrum, there are changes that will just naturally happen, and I will have to be open to both. I will have to take control over my own life and say the change will happen at some point, so best I be in control of it, or to some extent be prepared for the change that will come unexpectedly, right? So I always try and prepare my life and prepare my situations financially, mentally, physically, spiritually, call it whatever you will, for change that might happen. So even if I'm living an amazing financial life today, which I'm not, by the way, but even if I were, I would never ever settle on that and think that I won't lose all my money and I won't go back to living in a trailer park or living, somewhere where I'm really struggling and not having an awesome car in the driveway or anything. So I try and mentally prepare myself for it. I also try and financially prepare myself for any unexpected change in my life. And I think that's the real life tip that I want to leave with you, Leon, and with the audience today, is take risks and really think about it and be open to change. And that's pretty much it from my side. Leon, any closing remarks, any closing comments from your side?
Yeah, I do actually. So coming from the, let's say, novice when it comes to change, I think I can talk from a point of experience, again, having acute, experience with drastic change this year. and had to go through the coping and understanding and resentment and acceptance of all the changes in career development that happened for me this year. One of the things that really helped me, and I think this is probably applicable to many things in life, is that I took the new opportunity, let's call it changing from a technical position to a managerial position, and I reverse engineered it. So I went and looked at the end goal, and I said, all right, I'm here, that is the end goal. Let me go and work out the logical steps and milestones that's going to get me to that end goal. And then you start only working and focusing on those small milestones. So as soon as you start taking where you are, where this change is forcing you towards, and you draw that line, if you could see it as like, how a crow flies, like in one direction, and you say, okay, this is where I am, this is where I'm gonna have to be in order to like cope or survive or make it work. But then in between that there's going to be various steps, and there's going to be various maybe things that you need to learn, or adaptations that you need to make, or sacrifices that you need to make, or budget cuts and restraints that you need to make, or luxuries that you have to give up, or skills that you have to develop, or something. But as soon as you can actually go and put it into those small micro steps or milestones, wow, then it becomes powerful, because then you can actually look at these little milestones one by one and say, listen, this is not that big of a mountain to climb anymore. I can actually, let's say, for example, I need this skill in order to get there. All right, cool. Let me go on Udemy, or let me go on Shaw Academy, or one of the online teaching platforms, and go and study these skills. Mm-hmm. All right, then I need to know how to do X, Y, and Z, or I need to understand X, Y, and Z. Go and quantify that, put it into something that you can literally touch and feel, and then work on that and get that done and push it out the way. And before you find yourself, you've progressed into the change that you thought you could never actually consume, understand, accept, or be a part of. So that's something that really helped me. And again, I'm absolutely not, pro change. I'm very much someone that is a creature comfort type person, and I enjoy being safe and sound and just kind of having that level of predictability. But I do also enjoy change a little bit. I do enjoy the excitement, as long as it doesn't detract too much from my stability, But and that's the only way that I've found change to be consumable, or something that I can deal with, is to break it up. And
That's
I mean,
beautiful.
and it's actually it's actually rather profound, and it's something that's very applicable to many different things in life. Is as soon as you start taking that massive giant, so if there's a huge mountain in front of you, and you just start seeing it as rocks. First you see it as sand, then you see it as rocks. Then you see it as rocks at an incline that forms a hill, and then the hill forms 5 hills. And then the 5 hills become a crevice, and then the crevice becomes a mountain. Then suddenly, now it feels like you can tackle it. But if you just look at the mountain, it's like, nah, screw that, I can't do that. So yeah, I mean, it's again, and one of the last things that I want to touch on, and that actually gets to my analogy just now of the mountain, is just check your ego, and this is where I'm also again very, very guilty, is look at your ego. Typically the biggest roadblock to the change is you and you yourself. It's nothing else. It's not financial, it's not your parents, it's not your wife or your kids or whatever, it's just you. It's you and the change. Those are the two things in contention. So don't find an easy out, or someone to blame, or a crutch of some sort to blame this change on. Take the change on. The change is between you and set change. Check your ego. Embrace the change and try and see how you can break it up into pieces that's maybe less daunting, and then start tackling them one by one. Before you notice, you might be very, very close to where that change was taking you. And wow, I mean, that's super liberating. That brings you to the other end. You feel triumphant, you feel good about yourself, and probably you've learned a lot more, and you'll be a better person for it. And that's probably the biggest thing about change that maybe we mentioned it, maybe we neglected to say. But as I mentioned before, it's about education. So after change, you're going to come out the other end way stronger than you went in.
That's so beautiful, Leon. I think you touched on it on such a perfect point there. It's play into the change, because the change will happen, and you have to ask yourself, if this is going to happen, what do I need to do in my life to actually make it work out for me? And you'll find that it's, like you said, so liberating at the other end of that spectrum of looking back and saying, wow, I was not impressed with this change in my life, but you know what? I went with it. I rolled with the punches, man, and I made it work. And now look at me. Now I'm so much stronger. Now I can accomplish so much more, and I've actually discovered passions that I thought I'd never ever have, because to a large extent that's the change that you're talking about, and that's partly why we're sitting here as well, as you mentioned, is because you tapped into some extra potential that you never thought you had. And we said, yo, let's start a podcast. I think that was the coolest thing ever. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is all we have time for. I really hope that this has been informative. And take that one key takeaway with you this week. Embrace change. Accept change. Life is like a plant. Life is like a tree. It's a living organism. And living organisms will always have to change. They will always have to grow. And it's... the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can embrace it, and the best you can make of it. So once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining the 10th episode of the Real Life Tips podcast. From myself, Mono.
I'm Leon. Thank you so much for joining this episode. Again, I'm so stoked that it's double digits, my man. So very, very happy to have you here. And we're going to be continuing on this trend. We'll be bringing you a couple of very, very good episodes that we've already got lined up. And stay safe. This is the holiday season right now if you're listening in live. But stay safe through the holiday seasons, and we'll see you on the flip side.
We'll see you on the flip side. If you like the content, if you feel that it has had an impact on your life, please, guys, go ahead, share the episode with someone that you feel needs to hear this message. And as always, please rate us, please review us. And until next time, ciao.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining this episode. We really hope that it inspires and motivates you. By the way, we're giving away a free 5-step personal budget template that will help you take control of your financial goals. So just head over to rltstudios.com, sign up for our newsletter, and we will get that right over to you. So head over to rltstudios.com, and we will see you in the next episode. Until then, cheers.